because when it says honor your father and your mother, it is not just your biological parents. And we are putting these people who have paid their dues through their worst nightmare. Nobody works and sacrifices for a nation and expects that at the end of everything, when you think that you're going to have a bit of dignity to you, you'll be seen at a gate, being ignored. Being ignored.
You know it.
Mami, food for thought.
Mate.
I came to relationship counseling by accident. It was imposed on me by my position as one of the leaders of Youth for Christ, YFC, in the mid-70s. I was 20 when I became the artistic director of Youth for Christ drama troupe in 1974. In those days, that was before we gave a name to the drama troupe and called the J Theatre. That was to come years later. In those days, YFC, or Youth for Christ, ministered mostly to adolescents. These were young people who were just discovering themselves and the nature of the world around them for the very first time. But more importantly, these were young people whose hormones were beginning to kick in and were overwhelming them, and who were discovering love for the first time in their lives. It was totally confusing and exciting at the same time for them, and for some of them in equal measure. For most of them, there was no one to talk to apart from those of us in leadership in Youth for Christ. So my colleague leaders and I spent countless hours listening to them and helping them make sense of their transition from adolescence into adulthood. It was time-consuming and hard work. Helping young people make the transition from innocence to self-awareness and knowledge was not easy. I will not forget the case of a young lady who blossomed into a sexy, beautiful girl almost overnight when she turned 16. Up to that point, she had lived without anyone paying her any attention whatsoever. And then overnight, she was attracting the attention of boys and men all around her. Wherever she went, boys and men were hitting on her, and she was totally alarmed by it. At first, she thought something was wrong with her. She thought that she had become demon-possessed, and that the demons in her were causing men to lose their mind over her. She sincerely believed that the devil had occupied her body and was now using her body to cause men to lust after her and to sin against God. She was sure that God was going to punish her for that very soon. I took time to explain to her that what she was experiencing was normal. I tried to help her see that she was no longer the girl she thought she was. She had grown into a beautiful, attractive girl, and she should expect more, not less, attention from boys and men. I brought in one of the female leaders to help her learn how to handle the attention. I was expecting that she would be relieved to know that she was not demon-possessed and that what she was experiencing was normal. But instead, she got more worried at the prospect that this was not going to end anytime soon. And then she says something that is forever etched on my mind. She said in anguish, oh, please, let God take away my beauty. Let God make me so ugly that no man would ever find me attractive again and lust after me again. I laughed and said to her, fortunately for you, this is one prayer God will not answer. Because those kinds of counseling situations happen daily. And then there were the cases of those discovering love for the very first time and not knowing what to do about their feelings for a boy or girl who had not even taken notice of them. There were also cases of hearts being broken when a young girl or a young boy discovered that what they thought was pure love sent from heaven had blown up in their faces. The tears and the pain, the confusion and the despair are not things I want to see again because they always leave a scar on you as a counselor. So that is how I got into counseling. Now, remember, I was in my 20s and was also struggling with my own matters of the heart and struggling with my own sexuality and my spirituality. So it was really the case of an older child leading younger children. But through these experiences, I came to learn a lot about love, and because I was not just learning from my own experiences, but from those of hundreds of young people. And as those I was leading grew and had more exposure, I was compelled to also grow and to become more knowledgeable for their sake. That meant lots of reading for me and attending every love and marriage seminar I could, just so I could have answers, not just for myself, but for those I was leading. Most of them continued to make me a part of their lives as they grew. And so, from watching and listening to them fall in love for the very first time in their lives, I grew with them to counsel them for marriage. And many of them involved me in their marriages as either the chairman or the preacher at their wedding ceremonies. Today, most of those I provided leadership for are no longer children. They have gone on to do great things for themselves and are married with children, and some even have grandchildren as well. Many of them are on retirement now or are preparing for retirement, but they still remain very active in their respective churches and in their communities. I also married to these people who forced me to learn and to grow. But now, one of the insights they gave me through their experiences was the discovery that love as a feeling is not enough to build a great love relationship. We all started off believing that if you loved each other, then you should be able to have a great relationship. And indeed, at the time, if you asked any of them planning to get married why they were planning to marry that person, the number one answer was, oh, because I love him, or I love her, or because, oh, he or she loves me. Initially, I backed off once a couple said they loved each other. I thought that was all that they needed, and I was happy for them. But when a number of these people who had professed undying love for their partners came to me a few years later to say, Brother James, I want out of the relationship because I don't love him or I don't love her anymore, I knew that something was wrong in building a relationship solely on the feeling of love. Gradually, I came to the realization that love as a feeling was a con. It got us to make lifelong commitments without telling us that it will fade or die on us in a matter of years. For a long-lasting relationship, we need to move from love as a feeling to love as a decision and a choice. This calls for a sense of duty, for honor, for responsibility, for respect, trust, commitment, and patience. It also calls for acceptance of your partner as a human being just like you, with his or her own flaws. If you do not understand that, you are in for a big shock in your relationship. Valentine's Day is behind us, but the challenge of building great relationships never ends. And we need to remember that love is not just a feeling. Love is as love does. In other words, love is a verb. That is, it is a doing word. And so for all the married people listening this morning and all who are in love relationships, I wish you nothing but harmony in your relationship. And to those who are not yet in any relationship, please don't rush into it. Just look for ways of making your life as complete as you can. For now, stay blessed, everyone. And Handsome, that's my presentation.
Love is indeed a doing word. How true.
It is a doing word. Koyo, do you remember your first time? The first time you fell in love?
I remember the first time I thought I was in love. It turned out I was wrong.
How old were you?
Oh, I was about 10 years old, Uncle Ibu.
Oh, you started early.
Well, I thought I was starting. I was completely wrong, of course. I didn't know what on earth I was talking about, or I didn't even know what it was. But I remember one thing, Uncle Ibu. I was so sure that I am supposed to say, I love you to this friend of mine, this girl that I liked. I am supposed to say it because that's what women want to hear.
Okay.
I remember thinking that. So the question of whether I actually feel anything or not didn't even cross my mind.
Was irrelevant.
All I knew was that I'm fulfilling an obligation that I must say it.
Yeah, you are meeting an expectation.
Small boys are young.
Someday we'll talk about that story, wouldn't we?
We have to, Uncle Ibu. Now that you've made me hint at it there.
It will be interesting for us to compare notes.
Uncle Ibu, you and me now, we have some plenty conversations outstanding.
Oh, we do.
We have to compare notes on many topics.
No, half of them not on air. Could you have a fantastic day?
You too, Uncle Ibu. Thank you so much. And that, of course, was Food for Thought, brought to you by Rover Man.